Oh hell no!
Hey guys, GameXtreme here and welcome to my E3 highlights video. In this video I'm going to be discussing my favourite games that I saw at this year's E3. I've got a list here of about 10 games or so. We're going to discuss all of them. These are just my personal favourite games. It's not like an objective best games at E3 or some shit like that. It's not in any order either, just going through the conferences in like the order they came out and going through the games in each of those conferences that I liked and that interest me. So yeah, without further ado, let's dive into number 1, boys.
You'll learn to appreciate its worth.
Now, anyone who knows me knows that I am a huge Souls fanboy. Dark Souls 1 is easily my favourite game of all time. Bloodborne is pretty high up there as well. I love the Souls games to death. They're my favourite games ever. So it should come as no surprise that I was pretty damn excited to see From Software's next game at the Microsoft E3 press conference. The game is called Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. We don't know too much about the game, except from that it takes place in feudal Japan. Well, it's not actual Japan. It's not historically accurate. It's more like it's classic From Software, like their take on it. It's still like fantasy kinda, but imagine like the Dark Souls games and the universe, but instead of like a European medieval setting, it's like a Japanese setting. So think of Nioh, that game. Everyone's going to be comparing this game to Nioh. So yeah, think of that. We know that you have a prosthetic arm that can do many things, such as turn into a grappling hook. It can fire firecrackers. You got shurikens. You can like buff your weapon with it. There's a bunch of stuff you can do with it. I think throughout the game you go and upgrade it by finding certain new weapons to add to the arm. And I've heard that there's going to be like a Metroidvania type level design where you go back to earlier areas and levels and like access things you couldn't before with your new tools on your arm that you get throughout the game, so that could be pretty cool. I saw in an interview that the world design is more similar to Dark Souls 1 than any of the other Souls games, which has me super excited because I love Dark Souls 1. The world of that game and how it's all connected, like the shortcuts and stuff, it's just masterful. Nothing has ever come close to that world, in my opinion, in terms of Souls games anyway. So just imagine like the level design of Dark Souls 1, but you're like flying all over the place with a grappling hook. Like, how cool is that going to be? Fucking hell. But yeah, I think the gameplay itself seems similar to classic Souls, except I think it has more of an emphasis on parrying than blocking. I think you have to like push the button at the perfect time before you get hit to deflect it. I think that's how it works. Another important detail to add is that there is no character creator, no character customization. You are a fixed character, like a set protagonist. I'm not sure if he has dialogue or not. I think many people will be disappointed in this, but personally I'm fine with it. There's no leveling up, there's no stats, no RPG elements. What he said, it does have RPG elements, but there's no like souls, no level mechanic, anything like that. It's more dependent on skills rather than stats, which is good, because in some Souls games you can just like grind, like level up your health, so that you can just like get through the game so much easier, because you have so much health, whatever. So they took that out of the game, so in order to beat the game you have to get good, and that's how it should be in my opinion. No just grinding Goombas to get like max level. You ain't doing that no more, bitches. So that's one thing. Also, I think they said there's no like no new weapons or armor. You stay with the same weapons and armor throughout the entire game, so that's a bit weird. I'm not sure how I feel about that. It might get a bit stale using the same weapon all throughout the game. But I guess that the arm, that's what you customize. You find new tools to add to the arm, so I guess that makes up for it in a way. So yeah, also it's a From Software game, so obviously there's going to be big bosses. It's going to be super hard. If you watch the trailer, there's a giant snake at the end, and the developers said that there's going to be many monsters throughout the game that size that you can't fight, and you have to sneak by, because the game does have stealth elements. It has light stealth elements apparently, which I've got to drive through in a minute, so I apologise about that. But they said it has stealth elements, but the focus isn't on stealth. It's not like you can get throughout the entire game without killing anyone. You have to engage in combat at some point, but you can approach it more stealthily compared to other Souls games. So there was a demo shown behind closed doors, which I haven't seen obviously, but I heard some people talking about it, and in one instance he was like hugged up against a wall, and someone walked in and he snuck up behind him, like slit his throat, and that enemy, if that enemy saw him, he would have called all the other enemies to like get their attention. So maybe there's certain enemies within the area that you have to take out with stealth before engaging with the other enemies, or at least otherwise it'll be much harder. So I can see that being a thing. I'm not sure if stealth will be integrated with the boss fights. Like, if you remember the Dragon God boss fight from Demon Souls, that kind of had a stealth element to it, and we all know it was pretty shit, but hopefully they've had time to improve on that formula and can do it much better this time. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out. Is there anything else to mention? Basically, it's still a Souls game. Like, in the footage, when he opened that big door, it was the exact same animation as the other door opening animations in the Souls games. I caught some of the sound effects being the same as Bloodborne. I had some Bloodborne sound effects in there. Like, From Software, they always use the same animations and sound effects in their games, which isn't a bad thing. I think it's quite charming, to be honest. I'm not sure if I would class this as a Souls game, to be honest. It's so different to Dark Souls and Bloodborne that I wouldn't even call it a Souls game at this point, because you don't get souls. Like, that's what determines a Souls game for me. Like, you kill enemies and you get souls, and or echoes in Bloodborne, and then you have like bonfires and checkpoints. Those are like the two main elements that define a Souls game to me, which is why like that's why I consider Nioh like a Souls-like, because it has those exact mechanics. But it seems this game doesn't have those mechanics. They said it doesn't have a bonfire mechanic, or at least not yet. They're working on something like it, I think. So I'm not sure how that's going to work. So I wouldn't call this a Souls game, but we'll have to wait until it comes out to see. But yeah. I don't think there's anything else to mention. I think that's about it. The game comes out in 2019. I'm stoked. I can't wait. I'm glad it's different than the other Souls games, because as much as I love them, it is getting a bit stale. They are kind of like the same games over and over again, which isn't necessarily a bad thing because I love them. So don't fix what isn't. Like in the footage, when he opened that big door, it was the exact same animation as the other door opening animations in the Souls games. I caught some of the sound effects being the same as Bloodborne. I had some Bloodborne sound effects in there. Like, From Software, they always use the same animations and sound effects in their games, which isn't a bad thing. I think it's quite charming, to be honest. I'm not sure if I would class this as a Souls game, to be honest. It's so different to Dark Souls and Bloodborne that I wouldn't even call it a Souls game at this point, because you don't get souls. Like, that's what determines a Souls game for me. Like, you kill enemies and you get souls, and or echoes in Bloodborne, and then you have like bonfires and checkpoints. Those are like the two main elements that define a Souls game to me, which is why like that's why I consider Nioh like a Souls-like, because it has those exact mechanics. But it seems this game doesn't have those mechanics. They said it doesn't have a bonfire mechanic, or at least not yet. They're working on something like it, I think. So I'm not sure how that's going to work. So I wouldn't call this a Souls game, but we'll have to wait until it comes out to see. But yeah, I don't think there's anything else to mention. I think that's about it. The game comes out in 2019. I'm stoked. I can't wait. I'm glad it's different than the other Souls games, because as much as I love them, it is getting a bit stale. They are kind of like the same games over and over again, which isn't necessarily a bad thing because I love them. So don't fix what isn't broken, or whatever the saying is. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's it. But yeah, I'm glad we're getting something new from Software. It's Hidetaka Miyazaki is the head of the game, which is good because we all know how much of a god he is. Like, he's the director of Dark Souls 1 and Bloodborne, the two best Souls games, so you know the game's in good hands. So yeah, I think that's it for Shadows Die Twice, so let's move on.
They want blood? They will get it. We'll cross it no matter what those fanatics think.
Metro Exodus is the third game in the Metrons. Like, you're on a train, and you go into different parts of Russia, I'm assuming, and you're getting off at the train, and you can explore these big open wide environments, and you can find side quests and people to talk to, and stuff like that. I don't think there'll be like a level mechanic and like dialogue options. I don't think it's that deep, because like I said, it's not an RPG. But yeah, in terms of the story of the game, we know it takes place after the good ending of Metro Last Light, which is the one where Artyom survives. Spoilers. I think some people are pissed off about this because the good ending was notorious for being hard to get. It was super obscure on how to get it, so most people just ended up with the bad ending where he dies, but that ending isn't canon. So yeah, I actually got the good ending on my first playthrough, which was nice. So I'm hoping we get to see the little dark one again, Pavel. That'd be cool, because I think Pavel survives in the good ending. Love me Pavel, he's so cool. But yeah, the thing about Metro that sets it apart from like other FPS games is how detailed it is. Like, you can see it in the footage shown. There's a button that you can use to wipe your mask, like wipe the blood and like gas off your mask, which I think is so cool. You use the currency in the world is bullets. So like, the more bullets you use, the less money you'll have. So you have to like think before you shoot, and before you buy, you're gonna have to be thinking like, oh, maybe I'll need this to kill some big monster, or vice versa. If you're gonna shoot a big monster, you're like, oh, should I be wasting this ammo, or should I save it to buy some stuff later? Like, I love the Metro games because it makes you think. It's not just a mindless FPS. Also, when you're stealthing about, you can like unscrew light bulbs and turn off switches to make it darker, to make it easier for stealth, which I think is cool. But yeah, just the gameplay of Metro being so detailed, and then adding in like the music and the atmosphere and the characters, there's just nothing else like it, to be honest. It's the best post-apocalyptic games I've ever played. And I mean, yeah, I don't think I'm going to talk about this game as much as Shadows Die Twice, because I don't think there's just not as much to talk about, to be honest. It seems that there's some sort of zombie enemies in the footage we saw, which in Metro 1 and 2 there wasn't any zombies. It was all just like mutated dogs and like other animals. There weren't any mutated humans. So that's kind of new for the franchise, which I kind of like actually, because it spices up the enemies. It would get a bit boring just to kill the Watchmen and the Silences over and over again. I mean, obviously you have your anomalies, stuff like that, which anyone who hasn't played Metro has no idea what I'm talking about right now. But yeah, I think that's it for Metro Exodus. Well, there's some more stuff we can talk about. He seems to be on a boat in the footage. Maybe we can use boats to get across wide open like lakes and stuff. That'd be pretty cool. There seems to be a giant fish monster that attacks him. I think the hub is in the Trone, where you can customize your weapons, go to sleep. I think there'll be outposts set around the environment. I'm not sure. In a huge staple of the Metro games were the underground tunnels, like the underground Metro tunnels or whatever they're called. Like a huge part of the other games are like the claustrophobic atmosphere of those tunnels and being underground, and like seeing like people huddled together surviving in like a Metro tunnel. But this game doesn't seem to have any of that. It seems to all take place out on the surface, because in the first two games it wasn't often that you'd go to the surface. Most of the game would take place underground in these tunnels. So to see this game being like set 100% on the surface, I'm not sure how they're going to do that. Maybe we'll go down to some tunnels, maybe not. I mean, we'll have to wait until the game comes out. I thought the surface parts of the other games were the best parts anyway, so I'm quite happy about this. But yeah, I think that's it for Metro. There might be some more stuff to talk about. If there is, I'll add it in later. But yeah, moving on to the next game.
Can't deny it, it's all true. But everybody still wants to live here. This city's always got a promise for you. Might be a lie, an illusion, but it's there, just around the corner, and it keeps you going. It's a city of dreams, and I'm a big dreamer.
I mean, just Cyberpunk 2077, what more is there to say? We've all been waiting for this game for years and years. It's made by the same people that made The Witcher 3, which I consider to be the best open world RPG ever made. So to see them do another open world RPG but in a sci-fi, like, cyberpunk setting, that is just like a dream come true. So yeah, we've been waiting for this game for years. I think it was first teased back in like 2013 or something, maybe even before that. And we got like one teaser back then, and then we heard nothing about it. And everyone was super curious, like what's going on with Cyberpunk? Has it been cancelled? Is it still coming? Like, what's going on? Then at the end of the Microsoft conference, you think it's over. Then no boys, it gets hacked, and fucking Cyberpunk just comes out of nowhere. It's like, oh shit, let's get hyped. We didn't see no gameplay obviously, but from what we did see, it gave us a good idea of what like the world and atmosphere is going to be like, and it looks amazing, just as expected. I mean, so yeah, there isn't much we can get from the footage that we saw, but there has been some interviews and some devs telling us some information. So some of the things I've gathered is that the game is first person. It is not third person like The Witcher. It is first person, it's an FPS. A lot of people were shocked to find this out. and I can kind of understand why. But they said it needed to be first person to be able to do some stuff that they want to do with it, because apparently there's going to be like scenes that take place in like a back of a car or in like a claustrophobic alleyway or something like that, and having it be third person wouldn't really work for those kind of environments. So having it be first person would allow it to be more like immersive, I guess. It feels like you're actually in this world, in these like dark, damp corners. And yeah, it's an RPG. Obviously, it's not just a first-person shooter. They said it's an RPG before an FPS, and not the other way around. We also know that there will be character customization. It's not like The Witcher where you're a set character. You get to make your own character, give him a name, change its gender, like change how they look. However, they do have a nickname called V, and that's how people will be referring to you throughout the game. V, just like the letter V. So yeah. There will also be companions you can hire throughout the game. We know of one called Jackie at the minute, who's like this guy who can speak Spanish or some shit. I have no idea. You can also drive around in vehicles, which I think then it will switch to third person. I hope you can go in first person while in a car. I love being able to drive in first person in games. I think it's so much cooler than third person, but yeah. There will also be factions you can join throughout the games. I think like maybe Fallout or the Elder Scrolls, like the Brotherhood of Steel, NCR, all that kind of stuff. All these different covenants, that's Dark Souls. All these other factions you can join and get different benefits, I guess. So we also know that character progression will be linked to skills. So I assume it might be like Fallout once again, where you level up and you get to put Fallout 4. Where you level up and get to put a skill and a certain perk, because it says there's going to be gun perks, melee perks, different attributes you can level up, and like make your character your own, roleplay, I guess. It even says hacking skills, that's just like Fallout. Cybernetic augmentations, all those fancy words. I'm just reading off a Polygon article right now. You know, Polygon, just the peak of all media outlets, but you know, you gotta do what you gotta do. But yeah, I think that's all. That's everything on this article anyway. So not much to say about Cyberpunk. Obviously, they've only just started showing it off after like a 5-year hiatus, so there's not going to be much we can find out. Maybe it'll be out next year. It said it is coming out on this gen, on PS4 and Xbox One, since a lot of people thought it would come out in next gen, but they said no, it's coming out this gen. So yeah, it might be coming sooner than we may think. I would say next year, end of next year, around that kind of time. But yeah, that's it for Cyberpunk. On to number 4.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.